we'll go from a hip hop song to a pop punk song to a gypsy weird Slovakian song to like, so sometimes it can be challenging to be like, do these songs work at all together? But I like them both, so maybe we should.
I've actually re-listened to that episode that we had with you earlier today because I have a lot of follow-up questions, but obviously I want to hear about this new record, the third album you have coming out, right, in October?
Yeah.
And when I talked to you a year ago, you had just the first record out. You just put out Gas Mask, I believe, or you're about to put out Gas Mask in the video.
Yeah.
And when we talked, you said, oh, yeah, we'll probably release a song every 3 weeks or so, and then maybe make it a mixtape. And it's funny how it became a record, which is dope. And now you have another record. So I'd love to hear that all about that. It's so cool. How things change, I'm sure.
It's so weird. It's only a year ago. Feels like a lifetime ago. Yeah, well, at the time we were with Atlantic. We were on a major label deal there, and so we never really totally jived, I would say, on the plan, kind of what we thought going in versus kind of what actually happened. So I think we wanted to put out a record. That song Gas Mask, we had that whole body of work, which became RA2, that was all recorded and everything, and we wanted just to release it because we were just really sitting on it for a long time. But they didn't want to. They kind of wanted us to just release songs, and so
are you not with them anymore? It got political.
We just didn't enjoy the process, really, to be honest with you. I think we learned that a lot of that business, it's very much a hits-based business, and I totally get that. That's how they make money. And they're happy to wait around for a year or two, pair you with the right producer, the right songwriters, kind of the right A&Rs to kind of find you that hit per se. And that's just not at the core of, I think, who we are and what we wanted to do. Obviously, we'd love to have a hit song, who wouldn't? But we're not, the joy for us in a lot of this is the fact that, a lot of the time my brother and I get to go and put our thoughts down on paper and work on these things, on songs and topics together and what we feel are cool and important issues. And, I don't think we're so desperate to get a hit that we, don't want to share that time together. It's kind of the joy in how this project started. So anyway, full circle, we actually kind of bought ourselves out of our deal. And we decided to kind of go back to being independent. So as soon as that happened, we were like, hey, let's just put out this record as soon as we possibly can. So obviously kind of the breakup took a little while. You have lawyers and shit like that. We had to get all our masters back. And so that took a few months to do. And then as soon as we had that and could get up and rolling, we had to make obviously a website, and we had to get all our old catalog on Spotify, and just the minutia, kind of details of the back end of a band that no one's interested in. That took a little while. And then as soon as we did that, we released that RA2. And at this point in time, we had already had RA3 pretty much done.
Because you're just probably, as you're trying to get everything back from the other record, you're obviously still writing, which is you're moving forward.
Exactly. And actually, we're in the studio right now doing the fourth one. So
wow.
We've kind of always tried to stay one record ahead of what we currently have to release, I guess, is kind of what we've been doing. So anyway, as soon as we got out of it, we put out RA2, and then, that was just, a few months ago now, and we'd already had this RA3 we recorded pretty much last year. So we've just been kind of putting those songs out one by one, and then we'll put kind of the whole body of work out in October, and then move on to the next one.
Wow, I love that. Well, it's funny to me that you say, you work with Atlantic, and they're trying to find you the right producer and right hit person that kind of, put you together with. But you kind of did that on your own, right? Even with the first record, to go out and you get, Joe Chino to help you on the record, and you get, you're working with the guys from Modest Mouse, and you kind of did that on your own, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, that says a lot for you guys in your band.
I guess, I wish I could say it was some kind of master plan, but really it's just, these day by day decisions that you have to make as you keep going, and one thing leads to another. So yeah, I guess we felt that, we had kind of done everything ourselves up until that point. So, we figured why not continue and to do things on our own. And that's kind of where we're at now. Trickiest part now is that we've really learned that there's gatekeepers in the industry. And I think that the major labels have the huge advantage there on distribution, and that's the relationships they have with the Spotifys and the Apples and the Amazons. And we don't get a lot of playlisting love, and things like radio. Those are very locked up, I would say. So that's kind of our biggest challenge. Yeah, that's our biggest challenge by far. Is just trying to kind of crack into the industry as kind of outsiders, and that's not easy to do. So that's kind of our fight right now. So,
but you guys have been doing a hell of a job at it. I mean, the amount of the presence you have online, and this is something we talked about before. You guys were ahead of the curve when it came to, okay, we're not going to really focus so much on being the band that's going to put in 10 grand into this van and we're going to cruise around the country and try to play to 25 people in each market. You guys pretty much were like, we're going to make sure our records sound dope and we're going to promote the hell of it out of it online. And then you kind of gain this fan base right in the UK. And that was kind of your first real touring experience.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the world gets shut down and you're already a leg up on everybody because you had already been kind of feeding that formula.
I guess kind of learned it the hard way. In the band I had before this, we did do the opposite of that. We got in the van and we're like, oh man, we touring. That's what a band has to do.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. And that was with Luna's?
Yeah, correct. Okay. So anyway, I mean, that was whatever. Right? We drove I'm sure you haven't driven across Canada, but it's not like the States. You could drive 12 hours and not reach another city. So
it's massive, right?
It's huge. So we would pull into Ottawa or whatever city and there'd be like 3 people there. And then you kind of like, on the next time around, you're like, was that really worth the time and money? Like, yes, we got better and we got better chops for sure. But if you have no fan base, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. So pretty much the approach with Rare Americans was the exact opposite. It was, let's build an online following first and get enough people interested in our music and really liking us and start selling some merchandise online. And then when the demand is there, then let's go visit these cities and actually play shows where people are there, because that's a whole lot more fun. So that's kind of been our approach from day one with this band. And now I feel like we're at the point where I feel like the touring side is really important, because it's like another pillar, I think, of the industry that you gain a lot of respect. People like to go to shows. Also, I think on the industry side, like I'm sure you go to shows. I'm sure, radio DJs go to shows, playlisters go to shows, journalists go to shows. People like going out and they like live music. So I think there's really something to be said about that. I remember when we were recording the first record, I went to a show in Seattle, Wolf Parade, and I remember Cheryl Waters from KEXP was there. And she's obviously like, she's a tastemaker.
Sure.
A lot of people know her, and she's got a great show, and she's a very respected, DJ. And so just like that, if we ever played a show in Seattle, maybe someone like that would come because they love live music, and now you have an in maybe with someone that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's kind of where we feel like we've really put a lot of effort online, and now we would like to go tour and visit some radio stations, meet some DJs, and just get our name out there more on that side as well.
Sure. Well, it's funny that you brought up radio, because I've been in radio for 16 years. I'm not doing the podcast now, but I worked for a station in San Diego for a very long time called 91X. And the reason why I knew your name and knew your band is because you guys sent merch to our radio station. And I was like, and we talked about this before, just not about the radio station part, but by your merch. I'm like, I got this because I was a DJ, and I got this like lunch pail, and it had all this stuff inside, like a shirt, and it had like a weed grinder and all this stuff. And I have your record on a vinyl, like it all came. And I was like, this artwork is so dope. This like horse smoking a cigarette is so cool. And then I started checking out your band just because I used to get so much crap sent to me all the time, and it would just be like, oh, this record from some band. Okay, cool. But the fact that it came in this, presented it, I was like, holy shit, like this is so rad. So I started, I like invested in checking out your band.
I certainly
dug it.
Yeah, I remember the process of packing those. It took us like a month, man. We had our little studio at the time, and we had like 500 of these lunch boxes, and we all were sitting there packing them. And then once we packed the lunch boxes, we had to print out the cards that had the individual names. And then I remember we fucked it up somehow, and we got mixed up, and so we had to like start from scratch. And so we're like trying to match like the address to the card and the right name. And then I remember we showed up at like the local shipping company. It was like a place it's like a drugstore. And me and Lubo showed up with like 500 packages, and I remember people in line were like, holy shit, I better come back.
They're like, I ain't getting behind this guy.
The lady at the till was like, oh boy, it's gonna be a long day. So yeah, I totally remember doing that. But the funny thing is, like, it's like it works, but it didn't work, because at the same time, it's like you could have gotten that and you could have checked out our band, and that's great that you did, and maybe we got on your radar a little bit. But the difference between you hearing our band a little bit and the program director or whoever, if that wasn't you, it's like they have to sign off and want to really champion a band really for that to really work at all.
No, for sure. But it did, I will say, because I was the assistant to the PD and the music director there. It did get your name around the building because people were talking about it. Like, they're like, who is this band? They're like, these are the coolest things. And, it definitely got people's ears perked. And I think we even probably played your record a couple times, to be honest. And maybe one of the new music shows, because it was a thing like, we're like, oh, wow. And then this is really cool. Like, it was one of those things. Whereas they get hundreds of thousands of now it's like emails that just go straight to your, like, I'm sure junk pile, unless some gatekeeper, as you said, it's true, that's going to come in, record rep that's going to come in and say, hey, you should check out Rare Americans, they have done this. But like, it's kind of up in that same vein. But like I said, that got your name in around our building for sure.
Cool. Yeah. And I imagine we'll try that again for the next one. But now we hired a radio promo person for the first time in Canada. So we've gotten a little bit of love, but it's real tough, man. It's like the radio is really blocked up by kind of the acts who've been around for 10 years, that when they release a new song, they kind of have to be played. So
dude, really we were in that world. We were in that world though. And I didn't get it. It's like, Pearl Jam released that record kind of in the beginning of quarantine, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool, but why are we going to play 3 singles off of a Pearl Jam record for a band that really isn't even, our demographic at the time was 18 to 34-year-olds, which is half of those people weren't even alive when Pearl Jam put out 10. It's like, why are we catering to this band just because they were like, give that to the classic rock station. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's tough, man. Like it's very surprising. Like even in Vancouver, we have been trying so hard to even get one spin on the local alt station, and but we can't even get one spin here. No idea why.
Missing out. There you are.
Not sure. We've tried. We've tried to send them whatever stats and facts and whatever that people might dig it, and it's a really, really tough world to crack into. So we'll keep swinging. That's kind of always our mentality, but it's super tricky.
I'm interested to know, because I mean, your online presence is insane. I mean, you have like hundreds of millions of streams and views across your social media and your Spotify and YouTube. Is radio really is it that big of an impact still, you think? Like, I don't know. As a radio guy, like, I just
good question. Really good question. It's I don't think it hurts if you can get championed. Right. Like, for example, there's a band, I don't even know if you would know them. They're called Arkells.
Oh yeah, dude, I love Arkells. They okay. I know them. I have a shirt of theirs actually.
Okay, interesting. So they're playing literally stadiums in Canada. Like they're playing arenas. Sorry, they're playing arenas, not stadiums. So their last tour, I think they're at 18,000 people a show. Massive. but their streaming numbers are much lower than ours, which is so interesting. But radio, whenever they release a song, they're always it'll go to number one pretty much every single time.
Really?
So
we played them. We did play them at the station I was at, and they played one of our Christmas shows or something. But they were the opening band. Like they played first when people were like coming in.
Yeah, so exactly. They're and in America they're playing like 300 to 400 seat rooms.
They're playing small spots when they came through here.
So for them, it's like they're the perfect example of they are a radio band. Like they are absolutely championed by every station in Canada. Absolutely loves them. Whenever they put out any song, it's gonna pretty much go to number one. So you know that
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so for them, like it's the biggest reason probably they are who they are. So I think if you can crack into radio in some regard, you know, it doesn't hurt.
That's fascinating to me. I had no clue because I've said it from my end. It's like, do people really care? But I guess it does help. It doesn't hurt. Obviously.
There's also a weird a respect or something. It's like if you hear a band on the radio, it's like, oh, that band's on the radio. It's like there's like a certain cachet to it or something that you feel like that band's famous or something if you hear them on the radio. I don't know why, but
it's funny.
People still have that. They have that attachment and association with radio.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I mean, I just became so jaded to it. It was like, I talk on the radio like 6 times a week for 5 hours a day, and it was like, does anyone care?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I guess people cared.
Is anyone out there listening to me, or am I talking to my microphone?
Myself, right? But that's interesting to me. Well, I want to get back to you because this is all about you. I know that you grew up as a hockey player, right? I mean, you did that forever up until about 19 is when you started writing songs. Is that correct?
Yeah, but probably 18, something like that. I was playing in the Western Hockey League, and we lived at Billets, like a host family kind of thing. And then we always had curfew every night at 9 or 10 p.m. So I just had a lot of time in the evenings to myself. So that's when I got a guitar and started playing, and pretty quickly wrote a song, and that just became like my life obsession, and I no longer cared about hockey at all. It was really weird switch that happened in my life and in my mind, and that was coming up on 10 years ago, and I love it just as much now. So
do you feel like that was the reason? Like, did you I mean, I didn't ask you this before, but how did you decide, was it because of the songwriting, and then you're like, no, I'm not really that into hockey anymore? Like, was there something that happened, like a moment that you decided, like, I'm just gonna focus on songwriting and guitar, that route in life?
I think it's like it's almost like a relationship. It's like if your heart isn't totally in it anymore, it's hard to give 100%. And I think I experienced that with hockey. As the time went on, I was playing in the Western Hockey League. It just wasn't quite as fun anymore. Like it's a multi-million-dollar business. There's big ticket sales. We were playing in front of 5,000, 10,000 seat audiences or crowds. So people got traded. So your best friend could get traded the next day. That happened all the time. So it's kind of a weird life to live, especially when you're 16. You move away from home when you're really young, and your parents are really sad, obviously. And it's a totally different kind of way to live your teens. And I think after several years of just committing all attention, energy, everything, and trying to be a professional, I remember my 18-year-old year, kind of my NHL draft year. I had a really good front half of the year, and I was in the NHL Central Scouting, and I thought I was going to get drafted. And then I had a shitty second half of the year, and I didn't end up getting drafted. And that, I don't know, took the wind out of my sails a little bit.
I can see that.
And then at the end of that year, I got traded from that team. It was from Brandon, and I got traded to a place called Prince George. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Prince George, but I remember the year I played there, we had the highest crime rate in Canada.
Really? I've heard the name. I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah, it's a really rough town way up north in British Columbia. So it's also the most traveled city in the league, because you're probably 7 hours away from your closest game.
Oh, so you're constantly on the road if
yeah,
you're
well,
playing anyone.
We're playing 72 games a year, so half those are on the road. So, you know, we'd be driving 20, 25, 40 hours sometimes to go to Saskatchewan or go to Winnipeg or whatever.
That's brutal.
So yeah, you log a lot of hours on the road, and I just think after a while, you know, I didn't love it as much anymore. That year, also my 19-year-old year, we had a lot of issues on the team, and the coach got fired, and the general manager I think got fired, and it was just not a very good setup, and we didn't have a very successful team that year, and that's when I started writing songs, and I think the whole shebang of everything kind of mixed up into this smoothie of emotions or something.
Sure.
Just kind of led me down a different path. So.
And then you went, you just took off and went backpacking or something, right? You traveled for a while. And
the end of that year, I decided to actually, I worked for a few months. I sold cars.
Really?
I wanted to make some money to pay for the travel and whatnot. So I worked for a summer selling cars. So I worked at a Hyundai store and sold a bunch of cars, and
got some good warranties there at Hyundai.
Yeah, nice store. They're home of the 5-year warranty, whereas you get a Toyota or a Honda only 3-year. That was part of my sales pitch. I know it very well.
Never forget it.
Yeah, I'll never forget that one. So yeah, after that summer, I went backpacking for 4 or 5 months, and then I came back actually, and I sold cars again. And then I left again to kind of, you know, just, I guess, discover myself a little bit. I wanted to see more of the world. And that's one thing I always recommend to every young person I meet who's kind of coming out of high school or taking a break or finishing university or whatever. I feel like before you kind of jump into your real life and you get a job, I feel like there's just not a better way to spend $10,000 than to go around the world and to learn and to expose yourself to different cultures and different people. And it was such a game changer for me and really opened my eyes. And everybody I've ever met who I've kind of gently pushed or encouraged to do that has always come back and like given me a big hug and been like, thank you so much for telling me to do that. It was like the best decision I've ever made. So
I know, I always envy people that do, because I didn't do that, and I'm always like, oh man, I wish I would have done that. Like that seems like
Never too late, man.
Except for I have 2 kids and a family. I see. I'm like, peace out. I'm gonna take myself backpacking for 2 months.
Yeah, it's tougher. Actually, Jan in our band, he's in his late 30s, and he was actually working for IBM in Slovakia.
Whoa.
So he had a really good job, but he hated it. He just felt like he was kind of a number on a list, and so he wasn't really sure what to do with himself. So he did this famous walk in Spain called the Camino. And pretty much you walk like 30K a day for a month, and you walk through the whole coast of Spain, through Madrid, through some of the major cities. And it's pretty much the purpose of the walk is like a spiritual, it's people who are often just trying to, you know, at a crossroads in their life, and they're trying to kind of reevaluate things and figure out who they are. And it's often this solo time, you know, walking for that many kilometers, you know, you in the countryside kind of, and a lot of people come out on the other end of it with a bit of a new lease on life and a kind of a new plan and a new energy. So he said that was like one of the most game-changing things he's ever done in his life. And actually I wrote a song about it on this next record. So
really?
Yeah, I'm excited for the music video of that one, because it'll be really cool to see someone's journey through Spain and also through their mind, their journey as well.
I love that. Your videos are so cool. Like all the artwork and everything you guys do is really dope. And we talked about this last time. And the cards that you guys had before, that were just character cards, you said that those were going to tell the story, and that's what you kind of implemented them into the newer videos, right?
A little bit.
Not as much.
I think I'd be bullshitting if I said that we followed those, you know, those cards. I wish we had that. I wish we had that foresight on day one. I think at the beginning we just thought they were kind of dope, and then we've tried to kind of implement I can never say this word, anthropomorphic characters, which is like the half human, half animal characters. That's been kind of a reoccurring theme in a lot of the videos. Sometimes we get asked about that, and I think it's really like a lot of it is it kind of softens the subject matter a little bit. Like you know, we had a song Ryan and Dave, which is a true story about two people we know, and one of them, they're two cousins, and we're best friends as kids, and then you know, one kind of took the path of a good career and a family life, and the other one really got down the hole of drugs and mental health and substance abuse, and found himself in prison, and then got out, and just really tough. And he'd always kind of go back to his cousin whenever he needed kind of some help or a couch to sleep on. And you know, it kind of told their story. And I feel like because they were kind of half human, half animals, it kind of, I don't know, made this story and the video a little bit easier to watch than, you know, if it was just two real humans. It's almost too close to home for a lot of people, because a lot of people know someone who's in a similar position, or they have a sibling that's like that. And it's almost like this way, it makes it, you know, a little bit more, I don't know, fictionalized in a way.
Digestible for people.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because so you guys had the Lunas first, right? And then you went to school for music. You went to.
Yep. Went to audio engineering and music production.
And that's where you learned to record. And that's kind of been a big thing with Rare Americans from the beginning, right?
Huge. Yeah. That was really helpful, because there's one thing I often notice with bands who you could find a band who's a very good live band. You know, and they have a lot of energy on stage. They're really fun to watch, but if you hear the recorded tracks, they just don't hold up. I find, and I think that it's a totally separate thing between being a good songwriter and having, you know, good quote unquote production, and knowing how to record songs. And I really think it takes a lot of reps, and it takes a lot of trying different things, and experimenting, and a certain level of technical ability, I would say, being able to achieve things that you want to hear. And so that was a big staple from us from day one, was, you know, really just demoing our own songs and trying different types of production. And you know, it's a lot different when you work on a song, and you're able to layer ideas down right away and hear them back instantly, opposed to when you have, you know, 4 or 5 people in a jam room for 2 hours, and someone's dealing with a breakup, and someone's going through this, and you know, or you're getting fatigued, or that's often, you know, especially in Vancouver, their jam spaces are very small, real estate's very expensive, so you can get tired, it gets hot in there. Versus, you know, this way you can spend 8 hours working on a track, and you're sitting down and you're drinking coffee or whatever, you're laying different ideas down. And that's the way we've kind of worked since the beginning. And I think that's been, you know, big advantage for us to be able to just test out any idea we possibly could want at any given time. And yeah, it's also pretty fun.
Yeah, and you can speak the languages, and when you're in the studio with a producer or something, right? I'm sure that's helpful to be able to kind of get instead of not knowing anything and being like, oh, I want it to sound like this, you can kind of probably walk them through. We even use a lot of the tracks we already recorded. Like, oh wow,
you know, like for example, Lubo always has crazy cool different sounds and things that are just very hard to recreate. So if that's a demo that we worked on in February or something, you know, and now we're in whatever the summer in July, and we're starting to actually record these songs, you know, that was a moment in time that happened in February that, you know, it's like, hey, Lubo, try to get that again and play it a little better. It's like, there's no point. That it had so much kind of magic to it at the time. Let's just keep that exact performance, that exact sound. So pretty much in all the songs we do, we end up using a lot of the stuff that we recorded on our own.
Like as a demo? Wow.
Yeah, just as individual tracks, whether that's guitars, it could be some background, it could be some background vocals, it could be, you know, could be whatever really. Even it could be the lead vocal. You know, oftentimes when you do, you just write a song and you just work on it. It's fresh, it's emotional, it's something that you've just gone through. You're really excited about it. So your vocal delivery is more probably enthusiastic than something that you're trying to remember happened a year ago or 8 months ago. And it's like, get back into that headspace. It's sometimes hard to do, or it takes on a different meaning. So there's definitely been times where we've just used the original vocal performance because it was more inspired.
That's a great point. I never thought of that. Yeah, to get it, you're capturing that emotion in that moment, and then you're not going to have to try to recreate it.
It's like
in the
you're
studio
acting
down the line. Right.
Really, down the way, you're kind of acting. You're trying to be like, right. I oftentimes I'll have to go back and really read the lyrics and be like, I haven't looked at this song in months. What was this song actually about at its core? Who was it about? Why was I writing it? And I'll often even write notes to myself of like, this is why, and this is how, and this is how this part should be. You know, the emotion that I guess it was trying to convey in the lyric. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. Music's hard, man. Music's not easy.
Music's hard. I like that. I want to back up to just kind of the inception of the band. I know it's you and your brother, you guys are in the Caribbean, and you're like, let's write a song. And he's like, let's write a whole record. You did tell me in the first conversation that you're because this is your older brother, right? You have two brothers.
Two brothers, yeah.
And the other brother is a singer-songwriter, right? Or was
yeah,
singer-songwriter.
Yeah, a while ago. He's a great songwriter. He had a couple records. I always really loved his songwriting. And then he kind of stopped doing that several years ago. And now he's actually we flip-flopped. He's actually in the sports business. So Collins, the general manager of the Saskatoon Blades, which is a Western Hockey League team. So the league I played in is called the Western Hockey League.
Yeah.
So it's like the league the pros draft from. So he's a general manager of one of those teams, as well as the general manager of the Saskatchewan Rush, which is the professional lacrosse team.
Wow.
I don't know the nearest lacrosse team to you. I don't know if
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee now. I moved over like since the last time we saw. I was in San Diego, California, and then I moved to Nashville.
Okay.
So I don't. Lacrosse was big at my high school, but I don't know
if there's an NLL team there or not. There's several throughout the states.
There is one in San Diego, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I thought there was one in San Diego.
They started like right when we lost the Chargers.
Okay, there. What a replacement.
Yeah, we got a lacrosse team.
Nice. So yeah, he's a general manager of the Rush too, who plays against them in that league. So
that's cool.
He's fully in the sports business now.
I was curious if he was pissed at you for starting a band with your other brother without him.
No, we've actually invited him several times to come write songs, but no, I don't know.
I meant in the beginning though, like when you're like, "Hey, we came back and we got this whole record." The two of us.
I haven't actually directly asked him that question, but I'm sure there was a little bit of like, a feeling of feeling left out or wishing he was a part of it or something. But I think for him, songwriting was a very a thing he did in his solitude, and he was writing about things that were happening in his life when he was actually on a tennis scholarship in Eastern Illinois.
Oh wow! So you're all athletic, sounds like.
Yeah, we have an athletic family, so that's when he was really into songwriting, and so I think that the collaborating and working on a song he'd never really done before, so it was a bit of an unfamiliar process to him, I think.
Sure. Okay. Well, okay. So that first record, you guys, you did a lot of the writing there, and when you first decided in the Caribbean, but you came back and wrote a bunch of songs. You had like 25 or so songs, and you reach out to Joe Chiccarelli, and he takes on this project, which is crazy, right? I'm sure what a validating moment to have that guy say, "Hey, this is good. I want to work with you."
Yeah, that was cool. I remember I sent it to his agent, and the demos that we had at the time were literally like, I had crickets in the background. It was on the front porch. It was literally in the Caribbean. We had my iPhone, so you could hear like the wind in the evening, and just me and my brother screaming on these demos. And anyway, I think his agent initially was kind of like, okay, there's maybe something here, but I don't know, this is maybe a little rough, but he's like, I'll send it anyway. And then he ended up, Joe, I guess, really liked the spirit of the song. So he called me and he said he really, he enjoyed it. He liked the lyricism a lot. He liked the cheekiness of it. And so he was interested in doing the project, and that was a lot of fun, really good learning experience. We learned a lot from him. He's such a hard worker. That was one thing that was like, the guy takes like a 10-minute piss and eats a sandwich, and besides that, he spends literally 10 hours.
10-minute piss.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then he's just at the board all day long tweaking, and he's a really, really hard worker. So yeah, we learned a lot about that process, and it was also it was fun, and it was a cool experience to kind of launch the band.
Yeah, you get to work with Eric Judy and Joe
No,
Plummer. Oh yeah, Eric Judy had a hernia or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. He pulled out right before. So Yuki Matthews stepped in, who was the bassist from the Shins.
Oh, he's in the Shins. Okay.
Yeah. So and then Joe Plummer was a really good guy. We liked him a lot. So we actually had him back, and he came to Vancouver for the second record, RA2. So he's the one who played drums on that record as well.
Oh, really? That was my next question. If you had a chance to work with them again on that second album. So you did. Joe Plummer. What about Eric Judy? Did he make it back or no?
No, no, I hadn't talked to him. But we had found a bass player in that time period who actually happened to be kind of our chief engineer, who was engineering all the demos that we had for RA2. So I felt it would be a bit of a disservice to him to try to just bring in another bassist for the record when, you know, he had spent the better part of 6 months, you know, spending a lot of time and energy on these songs. So we, and he was also a good bassist. So he played bass, and then we didn't have a drummer. So Joe came and played drums.
That's cool. That's cool. And were these songs all done? I mean, when you put out Gas Mask, that was
part of that batch.
Yeah, that part of that batch. And you wasn't going to become a record, right? At that time, it was just going to be singles.
Well, no, it was going to be a record, but then Atlantic came into the picture right when we were releasing the first ones. The first three were Brittle Bones Nicky, Milkman, and Ryan and Dave. And Brittle Bones Nicky kind of took off online.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
And that's when we got a lot of interest from labels. So that happened in like September, I think 2019, and then that's when labels started calling us, and we met with this label APG Atlantic, and then through kind of like October, November, December, January, February, March, it took fucking forever, man. I just couldn't believe the amount of back. I thought like a record deal was like, okay, we like they reached out to us. We had a really good call. The A&R guy is awesome. I really like him. His name's Dan. And then they flew us to LA like literally 3 days later. And we had this big meeting. We met with the CEO and had a great chat. Everybody was on the same page. They gave us a day in the studio. I think they kind of wanted to like test us out a little. And we threw down 2 tracks, totally produced them that day on the spot. And they quite liked them. So I think that kind of passed the test a little bit, that we were the real deal.
The real deal.
And then I thought like, okay, we're going to go through paperwork for like a week, and then we're going to be off to the races. And fuck, man, it took 6 months. Like it was just insane. Like I just couldn't even believe how long it takes. So anyway, that whole gap, if they never entered the picture, we would have already released that record with Gas Mask and Hullabaloo in Berlin. But anyway, we didn't want to until the deal was done. So there was a big lapse of time. And then once we were fully on board with them, that's when we released Gas Mask. That's when we chatted. That's when kind of the publicity started, and the PR team at Atlantic probably reached out to you. And then we wanted to kind of put out the whole record because we'd been sitting on it for so long, but they didn't want to. So then more time kind of passed. And then that's when we kind of got out of the deal around Christmas time. And then come full circle, we were independent. And that's when we were like, fuck, we just need to put these songs out. They've been in my iTunes library for literally 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is the record a concept album?
RA2?
Yeah.
No, not
just,
really.
There's just stories amongst the songs.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been playing around with this time now, is figuring like, does a record need to have like, I'd be curious in your opinion, does like a record need to have a through line? Does it need to be a story of something or someone that someone went through, or can it just be a collection of songs that are seemingly unrelated?
I think it can be a collection of songs that are seemingly unrelated. And I think it'd be hard to argue that a lot of the best records ever are like concept through. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I
don't think it needs to happen. I mean, the first record I fell in love with was Dookie by Green Day, and there's no like connection to any of those songs within the record.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. But now it's like we've entered this weird territory by animating everything, and people like, you know, wondering like, is this connected to that? Is this connected to here? So now I'm like, fuck, I've like entered this spider web of being like, shit, man. How do we form like this like Star Wars, like this character is this one, but it's actually here. but I feel like if we can actually pull it off, it would be like unbelievable. But it's just so hard. So anyway, now I'm back to like the point of like, okay, should we just pick what we think are the 14 best songs, and they don't have to necessarily follow any type of storyline. Yeah.
What about but RA3 isn't that presented as a concept or no?
Kind of a little bit. I never use that word in particular because I believe like a concept record is something that you sit down and you're like, we have a blank page and here's the concept and here's the first song and okay, now we go move on to chapter 2. It wasn't written like that. Again, these were just like a year of thoughts and a year of different experiences, and it just so happened that the songs ended up being a lot more personal, I would say. They were told from my perspective, things that I had gone through, versus the first 2 records weren't like that. They were more outward. So then once I kind of figured that out by looking at the songs that we recorded and the songs I like the most, it was like, okay, these songs are pretty personal. It's about me, really, in my life. So why don't we introduce this as my kind of character and use it as an opportunity to kind of propel my avatar, so to speak. So that was the decision for that. So most of these songs are literally little snippets of my life and little stories from my life. Most of them are totally true stories.
Wow. And because that's called Jamesy Boy and the Screw Loose Zoo. So I figured like you're obviously Jamesy Boy, I would assume. And it's probably your storyline of going through it. But you did reference in one of the songs, like for example, PhD, that's not about you directly.
No,
so
but
some of the but a lot of them are.
Yeah, it's not about me, but it's connected to my character because throughout this pandemic, I started interviewing fans for fun. So the idea was I got to interview them, not the other way around. So I was asking questions, and one of the fans, his name was Nick, and he just had a remarkable story. He was diagnosed with being bipolar when he was about 12, and so he was put on kind of heavy medication, and really like the light went off, and his life became very gray, and he became somewhat of a hermit. He lost a lot of his friends. He gained like 60 or 70 pounds. He stopped doing activities that he liked doing. And I believe bipolar, I mean, I'm no expert, but I think what it is people who have a very large emotional spectrum. And so what pills do essentially is to shorten that a little bit, so you're not as happy, or you're not as up, and you're not as down. You can kind of fluctuate more of the through line. But for someone who has a normal range of emotion, if you're medicated and it's smaller now, it's kind of like you can't experience any highs or any lows. So he felt very numb, and he always thought that he didn't really have this. So when he was in his later teens, 17 or 18, he got a second opinion, and the doctor said, I don't think you need these pills. I don't think you're bipolar. So he got off the pills, and it's like the light bulb. He got a new light in his life. He lost 60 pounds. He went back to playing lacrosse. He got all these friends. He went to university. He's now jacked. Like he's like working out like a freak. He got a girlfriend. And he wants to essentially be a doctor. So his kind of life mission is so no kid will be kind of misdiagnosed like he was. So anyway, I learned.
Yeah, so he lost like 5 years of his life easily there.
Yeah. So anyway, I learned this all through our Zoom interview. So and then I asked him for his permission. I said, "Can I write a song about this?" And he said, "Of course, man." So I kind of wrote the song from his perspective, but it is kind of related to my character because it was inspired obviously by a conversation I had with him. So
wow, that's cool that you're doing that even through the pandemic though. It's so finding out about your fans. You would do what, like a Q&A session, or you try to win an opportunity to have that?
Yeah, I was just randomly calling people. Like I would just put up we would just put up a post being like, hey, does anybody want to do a Zoom call? And I would do like 3 or 4 in a row for 20 or 30 minutes. And it was interesting to just get to know people from all over the world, and figure out who they are and why they like us, and what other stuff they like, and what they want to do in their life. And it's all over the place. Like I just couldn't believe the spectrum of different people and different people who listen to our music. And also a cool thing was the amount of different artists that people liked who also liked our music. Because I know growing up, like my brothers are 10, 11 years older than me. And, you know, and even you, if you were into Green Day, like, you know, being a punk rocker was like a sense of identity. You were,
oh, sure.
Yeah, you were a punk rocker. You were that was who you were. You didn't listen to hip hop. You weren't
No, you listened to Green Day and Operation Ivy and Rancid, and you didn't. That was, how dare you put on like anything other than punk rock?
Yeah, that gave you like a real sense of identity and who you were, and it gave people a sense of, you know, standing up to people and believing in yourself. And, you know, I think a lot of that is kind of the punk rock ethos, is questioning authority. Like, for example, fuck authority.
Like, Pennywise,
sure. Yeah. So, you know, it was very stewed into my brothers, even now. Like that punk rock influence still, even as business leaders, and they're almost 40 years old, that's still, they have a punk rock mentality. Versus now that doesn't exist really. People don't consume media like that anymore. You know, you could have a Rare American song next to a Mac Miller song, next to a Bieber song, next to a Rancid song, or a Blink-182 song, and all of them are kind of cool. It's kind of like the you know, the next generation just doesn't give a shit about any of that.
They don't. And I've had this conversation before, and it's really fascinating that you brought this up, because if you take a festival lineup now, for example, like if you look at the first like Coachella lineups, it was all like indie, like they'd get a big headliner, but it would be like Radiohead, or it'd be, you know, The Cure. It'd be somebody up in that same vein of like very like artsy hip bands. Now it's like Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, and then you also see like
Tame Impala.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so wait, so you can like Tame Impala and Beyonce? That's cool now. Like it's just a concept that was never a thing, and selling out isn't a thing anymore. I feel like that was a big deal. You were like, oh, Green Day sold to a major label, like, oh, that band sucks now, or they're gonna put out garbage now, and it's like, no, nobody even cares. That's everyone's goal, is to go online and have a viral success. And that was never thought in anyone's mind before. It's like once somebody else thought it was cool, once the popular kids thought it was cool, then it wasn't cool anymore.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's cool. It's like good and bad.
I do too. I think it's kind of cool that there's no real line. It's like no distinct line anymore. It's kind of blurred.
Yeah, but maybe the messages aren't as strong either. You know, I think that punk rock did a lot of good for a lot of people. You know, and it really influenced people in a real solid way, and it really is part of their mental makeup. And I don't think that you get that same almost leadership now, based on like, because you had a real sense of community with it. If it's like you saw someone wearing a patch of a band you liked, or a vest or something, you're like, fuck, we're gonna be friends.
Yeah, like this guy's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We should have dinner together or something. Like, you know, but now it's like I feel like people it's harder to get like a sense of community now, because it's just so wide open.
Sure. That's a good point. I never thought about that part. Like you'd see somebody come in and you're like, okay, this guy's cool. He's got a Rancid patch on his back. Like,
yeah. I think weed is really like that too. Like if you see someone's a weed smoker and you're a weed smoker, you feel like you're kindred spirits in a way.
Right. You're like, okay, this guy gets me.
Yeah. It's like some sort of thing that's like, you feel like, we know what's going on kind of thing, or something like that.
Right.
It's interesting how things like that bond people.
Sure. That's funny. Well, okay. So you obviously put out RA2, and now you're releasing RA3, but you're working on the fourth record now. So tell me, was this third record written kind of during this whole limbo period with the label, and
a lot of it,
out when to get these songs out and how you're going to get these songs out?
Yeah, we were just actively working through the pandemic every day, kind of writing songs, demoing songs. That, you know, I remember, I think I sent them 75 songs and I think they liked one.
The label?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point I was like, oh man, this just, it's not fun for me anymore. I don't know. I clearly don't know how to write a hit. So that just wasn't super fun for me. And I liked a lot of the songs. So anyway, we decided to record the record. And then over the course again of the last, so RA3 was recorded just about a year ago. Pretty much, I think it was June 2020, during pretty much when the first wave of the real lockdown ended. I think it was about June, and there was like a slight reprieve where things got open a little bit. So I remember we got like the first studio date that was open. And I know the studio owner here pretty well. So we were going to keep a tight circle, and he was cool with it. So we recorded RA3 then, and now we've essentially had a year has passed. So that's just a year of songwriting to kind of pick from. So we've had, I don't know, 20 or 30 or 40 demos or something. So then it's just trying to narrow down and be like, okay, what do we think is a cohesive record? What are the best songs, kind of thing, So now we're here.
Wow. I'm curious to know if Baggage was a song you sent to Atlantic and they turned it down.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, look at that. You showed them 5 million views later, and the song's beating Machine Gun Kelly and St. Vincent on the alt chart there in Canada.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't win them all. Actually, it's funny, man. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. I have too big of a mouth sometimes. But I was listening to Macklemore, an interview that he did, which he hadn't given an interview in a long time. And it was like a full hour-long interview. And I think it was with Talib Kweli. And he was talking about the journey of being independent and whatnot. And part of it, he said, is like people assume that major labels were like knocking on our door like crazy, but they weren't. He was like, and then the one person he name dropped, he's like, I remember walking into Mike Caron's office and playing him Thrift Shop and Can't Hold Us Down. And he told me this was some underground shit or something. And so he never got offered a deal. He didn't get offered anything. And obviously Mike Caron's the one who signed us, or APG did. And so anyway, those two songs became like the biggest songs of the year that they did independently. Dude,
so yeah, they won a Grammy, right? Didn't they win Album of the Year with the record?
They just totally cleaned up. So anyway, it just goes to show that even people who have unbelievable track records, and I got a lot of respect for Mike Caron. I think he's a really smart guy, and he obviously his track record speaks for itself. But you're not going to hit a home run on everyone. You're going to miss some, and some happen when you didn't expect them to, and whatever. So that's why it's often tricky when you're trying to evaluate songs, and you're gonna like something different than the next person. So it's hard to be like, this is the one,
right? Especially I feel like nowadays too. I mean, it's so bizarre, some of the songs that come out of like TikTok. You're like, wait, what? How is that? Like, I have a 13-year-old and he's playing songs. I'm like, this is a hit. Like, I would have never picked that if somebody was telling me like, oh, this is the next big song. No way. And then you're like, oh my gosh, wow.
You can't really trust. You can't trust your ears anymore. You got to.
No, you can't.
You have to trust your 13-year-olds because
they're
the ones who are listening, right?
Right. It's crazy. Well, that must have been pretty. I mean, I would assume validating again in the sense that like, yeah, we did it ourselves. We put the second record out, and look how well it's been received.
Yeah, we made it a goal to try to get on Billboard because that had never happened before, and we knew we were really close, but right at the fucking end we realized that because YouTube a certain amount of views count to an equivalent album sale.
Really?
Yeah. And so we had a lot of, obviously YouTube big for us, so we're like, okay, with the physical pre-orders we already have, plus our YouTube and Spotify, we project we're going to have this many first week sales. So we think we're going to chart on Billboard. And then we found out that we were considered a web creator on YouTube, because in order to be considered an official artist on YouTube, you have to be distributed by a YouTube partner. So that means you have to be a label, or you have to be like a licensed distribution company to YouTube. And we were not either of those. And we tried to contact YouTube in every way imaginable. And we're part of the YouTube partner program. We're part of everything. Yeah. And we could not get anybody to help us with this issue. So we literally were like down to the wire, because there's a cutoff for first week sales. And we knew if YouTube didn't count, they probably wouldn't count. We probably wouldn't chart. So the very last second, we found this company called Studio 71, who's like a YouTube distributor. That's just what they do. So we ended up getting a lead with someone who's like an account executive there. So he ended up bringing our catalog overnight, like down to the wire, to get it uploaded on their platform so we could be considered an artist and these sales could count towards first week sales. And in return, obviously, we have to pay them like a 15% of our YouTube revenue. It's high.
Wow.
So anyway, but we wanted to chart and we didn't know if we would. And anyway, at the very last second, we found out we did. So that was like a proud moment.
That's huge. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, yeah. That is amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah, it was a proud moment for everyone. But it was just another thing that it's like, that's why being an independent artist is so hard. It's like you have all these things that you just don't know about, and how could you?
Right. How would you know that you needed to be through a like you would assume that, okay, I put my stuff up, it does really well, like I'm distributing it myself. Like why am I a creator? Like we're obviously a band. We've put out records.
It seems kind of like anti-YouTube. That's what surprised me, but it's a thing. So we've now learned that you have to be with a distributor on YouTube to be considered an artist. So
can you build your own distribution company?
Not really.
And become like Rare Americans distribution on YouTube? No.
I looked into it. Not very easy to do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. It's tough. So there's a lot of little hoops and bounds and
little gatekeepers everywhere, it seems like.
Exactly. So and I'm one thing I'm 100% sure of, it's not the last thing that we're gonna learn. There's going to be all sorts of these things as time goes on.
New little obstacles
that you just got to overcome. And it's just the everyday life of being kind of an independent small business, really, right?
Sure. So you're currently at the studio now working on the fourth record?
Yeah.
Okay. So how far along are you guys into this process?
We're just like day 2 or day 3. So we're kind of just starting. So we have 2 weeks now, and then another 2.5 weeks in September. Studios here are busy since everybody was locked down. I think a lot of people wrote a lot of pandemic songs.
Your favorite type?
Yeah, exactly. So now that everybody's recording them. So anyway, we got about a month of time kind of booked off, and we'll record this as we're kind of releasing RA3. And then, the goal for us is just not to let any real amount of time pass before we release something else. We just really wanted to keep releasing stuff. So we'll probably try and stay, 1 foot ahead every time. And as we're releasing a record, hope to have the other one recorded, kind of thing.
I love that. That's amazing. And did you say you're looking through the lines of a concept, or not really?
Kind of. I've been trying to just sift through the songs because it's all different. That's the other thing about our band. Is like, we're not like Green Day, where it's like the songs sound fairly similar. I think with us, we'll go from a hip hop song to a pop punk song to a gypsy weird Slovakian song to like. So sometimes it can be challenging to be like, do these songs work at all together? But I like them both, so maybe we should. but I think over time we've also learned that's part of, I guess, the charm of our band is that you're not going to get songs that all sound the same. You're probably going to get a lot of variants, and we've come to kind of embrace that, I guess.
I love it. Well, I can't wait to hear what you got coming out, and obviously the new record, which is coming out in October. Baggage is dope. The video's dope. So I'm assuming you're going to keep going on with the animated videos.
Yeah, we've really actually upped the ante there. We actually formed a business partnership with the animation company Solus, so we're kind of all under one roof now.
Cool.
So we have a lot of projects in development, also a couple of TV series that we've been working on together to kind of flesh out the kind of the universe and some of the specific stories a little bit more.
That's rad.
So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a much bigger process though. Making a song and a music video seems just like a piece of cake compared to going through scripts and voiceovers and animatics and trying to get your story great and your performance is great and the music and the sound effects. It's just such a process. So
can't imagine.
I got a lot of learning ahead of me in the next several months, but that's fun. It keeps every day interesting, and I'm looking forward to kind of the next year.
I love it. And if you need a voiceover guy,
yeah. Hey man,
you need a voice.
I think we're putting.
I know a guy that works cheap.
Awesome. I love it. That's great. Shoot your shot, right?
yeah, totally. Well, James, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. This has been awesome. It's always great to talk to you. And,
yeah, thanks very much for having us back, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we chat.
I love it. I have one more question before I let you go here. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists? I know I asked you this last time, but I'm going to ask it again.
Advice for aspiring artists. I think the big thing for me is that people need to really be passionate about what they do. And you can't really, you got to be consistent, and you just have to do it so much and so often that it's just like a professional athlete. You can't, if you're a pro athlete, it's not like you're training once a week. You have to do this every single day, and you have to be obsessed with it, and you have to really commit to writing so many songs, even when that feels very tiring and like you're out of ideas. You just got to keep doing it. And I think you can't underestimate the amount of hard work that goes into it. I remember that was one thing. My girlfriend, when I met her, she loved music, but she had no idea about what goes into a song. And I think the average listener, when they hear a song, they take it at face value and they give it 10 seconds now, and they're like, I like it, no, I don't, next. But it's like, if you saw the journey of that guy who wrote that song, that song probably happened a year ago. He stewed on the lyrics, and then he worked on the melodies, and then he recorded it, then he had to make a music video, then he had to make a marketing campaign for it. So just once people get to kind of pull back the curtains a bit to learn kind of how a song eventually reaches an audience, there's a lot of steps and a lot of hard work that go behind it. So I think if you're a young artist, you have to educate yourself in a lot of areas, and you just have to do it a lot. So.